Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. So here we are. Let's see what happened today. I guess I'll go in chronological order here with what Mr. Rafa did. So worked a little bit on the red buggy today, not all day, but like he has been. But got a few things done, important things. So one is the seat frames, which this car has Beetle seat frames on it, and of course Beetle seat tracks, which Brian Washburn and team put in when we built the new pan for it. So the frames themselves were overall in pretty nice shape, but they were kind of a little bit bent up and stuff and mangled on the bottom here where it goes on the track on the floor. And so Rafa spent a decent amount of time, basically doing like metal work or whatever you want to call it on the tracks on these to get them so that they would actually slide nicely on the floor. Well, go on the track. They weren't even really going on. So we spent quite a bit of time kind of massaging those and getting them so they would not only go on the tracks, but be able to be slid forward and backward like they're supposed to be to adjust the seats. So yeah, he went ahead and got that done. And then we took it to powder coating. And the guys actually turned it around for us in less than a day. Like literally, I think Rafa brought those over maybe at, 10 or so this morning. We had them back by, I think it was 1 or so. So yeah, super quick turnaround. I guess maybe they weren't that busy over there. But anyway, yeah, so got those back and yeah, they look bitchin'. And the other thing he did was the original shifter for this car, which was the one that the current owner remembers learning how to drive a stick shift on. Rafa went and did the paint detail on it. And previous to that, we had the woodworking shop across the fence for us. Blue Ribbon Woodworking, I think is the name. Blue Ribbon something. Anyway, they had restored the wooden part, which needed some love. And then yeah, so there you go. Looks amazing. Very happy with how that came out. Pretty easy to read the characters on there on the shift pattern, and yeah, it's very cool because again, the owner remembers learning how to drive this very same buggy with this very same shift knob, and we were able to restore it and make it look probably as good as new. It may not have even looked this good new. I don't know, but anyway, yeah. So nice little detail there. So those were, I think, the main things that Rafa did on this buggy today. We're still needing to get an original fuel gauge for it. The owner did come by today with his very red sparkly steering wheel that matches really nice the red sparkly paint. And so, yeah, we can start getting that mounted up. He still needs to get the horn kit for that steering wheel, which is like a Grant style, or it may even be a Grant. I don't know. It's at least a Grant style as far as the mounting and stuff. So he needs to get the horn button kit for that. And then I think he said he's going to get the adapter kit too. The old steering wheel that was in here was a Grant, so we could use that adapter, but it's kind of beat up and old looking. So I think he said he was going to go ahead and get a new adapter, and then of course the horn button, so we can get that all in and get it wired up so his horn works. And yeah, I think that was about it for this one today. Thanks again to the owner for coming by and discussing some details about his project, and again bringing the steering wheel and stuff. So that was that. So then Rafa, for a little while, turned his attention to the other sparkly buggy, the blue one. And yeah, we're starting to go ahead and work on this one. So not a whole lot to show for it today, just kind of preliminarily started figuring some things out here. One thing that Rafa did was this front beam on this car, which again came off a donor buggy. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but on this side of the shock tower here, they had a bolt running all the way through the shock tower because the inner threads over here were stripped out. So they had a bolt running all the way through it that had a big nut on it. Well, you can see my finger is pretty much like jammed there between the body and the shock tower. There's not really enough room for a nut there. So Rafa worked some magic and pretty much ended up welding a new nut basically like inside the shock tower. So it sits more or less flush with it now. So now plenty of room there. So that was just one thing that we wanted to fix before we bolted the body on here, is make sure that there's nothing like a nut there that would interfere with the body going on the correct location. So he did that, and then the pedal stop, which is not there right now, but it's the thing that goes right there that adjusts kind of where the brake and clutch pedals sit, was one that Brian Washburn had made, because for whatever reason, these pans that come from England, they didn't really make the stamping here correctly to just work with a Beetle pedal stop. I don't know why. It makes zero sense. So Brian Washburn made up a custom pedal stop that works specifically with these pans, and I think he's going to be selling those. So anyone who uses these, I don't know what it's, FOC, full on customs, I think, something like that. Anyone who uses or who builds a buggy with these pans, you'll be able to get a pedal stop that actually works from Brian Washburn, because the Beetle one actually will not work at all. It doesn't fit remotely. And so there you go. So yeah, pretty much just those things, just kind of preliminarily, getting started on this thing. The other thing Rafa did today, along with myself, is we got the brakes bled on the beautiful Turquoise 64 bus, which is kind of jammed back here. I always say it's a good thing that we're pretty thin guys around here, because shop is pretty tight. But anyway, yeah, so this bus now has working brakes and working emergency brake. I think I mentioned yesterday I tested the electrical. Everything I've tested so far works. The steering, I did like a preliminary alignment on it and then tightened up all the steering, which had been just left kind of loose because we knew we'd have to align it up. So yeah, steering's tight now. Went ahead and tightened down the rear axles and put cotter pins on those. Double check the front lug nuts. So this thing is pretty much ready to go over to Brian Roth now, who I mentioned is the one who built the motor for this thing. Bitchin' motor, 2110, Porsche style fan shroud, dual carbs, really killer motor. So the bus is going to go Thursday morning over to Brian Roth's shop. That's kind of hard to say. And he's going to put the motor in it and install the external oil cooler, filter, all that good stuff. And then we'll get the bus back and take it to the finish line from there. But yeah, I got all those kind of like last details done, that at least to the point where Brian can put the motor in it, maybe take it for a quick test drive if need. It's got, steering now, brakes, and electrical. So kind of the main things you need to move a car down the road. So that was that. While we were on brakes, Jacob came in today, and he and I bled the brakes on this guy, which was the thumbnail for today's video. So yeah, this one also has brakes. So how about that? Two vehicles got brakes today. Turquoise bus and the red Van Halen cowlook car. Both have brakes now. Both have excellent pedal feel, very firm feeling pedals. So this one has disc brakes on the front, drums on the back. The Turquoise bus, it's brakes, disc brakes rather, front and rear. So there you go. Both these cars have brakes now. So that's pretty exciting. What that does with this one is that allows me to now install the gas tank, which is still just kind of sitting here because wanted it out of the way while we were bleeding the brakes. But now I can actually go ahead and install that and plumb it up. And then I can plumb up this side of the fuel system. So from the hard line to the pump, and then likewise to the carburetors. And then pretty much when this thing has a battery in it, it's pretty much ready to fire up. So that will be happening, maybe not this week, but maybe next week we'll fire this puppy up. We'll see. Speaking of firing things up, I could not, for the life of me, get this car started, even though I had it running before. And we tried and tried and tried, and I kept priming the carburetors, and it would fire up and then run so long as it had whatever gas I poured down the carburetors in it, and then it would just die out regardless of how much I was pumping the pedal and so on. It just would not keep running. And so we checked the fuel pump. It was putting out fuel, but we noticed the fuel coming out of the fuel pump was gross. It was like
looked like coffee almost. It was so dark, and it seemed to have a lot of like kind of particles of some sort in it. I don't know how that's possible because, you know, I did change the gas tank in it, and the gas tank, which is sitting right here where I'm waving my finger around like an idiot, gas tank sitting right there. Right out of the gas tank, there's a fuel filter, and there was before, there is now. And then from the fuel filter, it goes to the hard line, to the back of the car, through a electric fuel pump, and then through a regulator, and then to the carbs. So I don't know how this fuel system got so much garbage in it, because literally between pretty much right out of the tank, there was a filter. So I have no idea how that fuel system was so full of garbage, but we kept flushing the system out and finally got fairly clear looking gasoline out of it. But despite the float bowls of the carburetors being full of gas, because, you know, again, the fuel pump was doing its job, the gas was just gross, but these carburetors are super gross inside now. And so I guess, however that gunk was in the fuel system, which I don't know how it was even there, but it got in the carburetors, and it seems to have clogged up the accelerator pump circuit on these carburetors. And so they came apart, and I'll probably run them through the good old trusty ultrasonic cleaner tomorrow and use some carb spray, get them all cleared out, and then I have no doubt they'll work great again. But yeah, kind of bummed out. I was hoping to instead be finishing up the one-piece windows on this car tomorrow, and then, you know, getting the car more or less wrapped up for the owner to take it. But alas, carburetors and gunk in fuel has stymied me here. So that's okay. I'll go through the carburetors in the morning and hopefully have this thing running by late morning or something again, and then probably go ahead and get back on the one-piece windows. So. And then tomorrow, I think Rafa is going to continue working on the blue buggy. So stay tuned tomorrow night for what happens with these vehicles, and maybe a little bit on this one. And that's it for today, guys. So thanks for watching, and we will see you again tomorrow.